All right, well, we're at that hour now. So we're going to bring up our keynote speaker of the hour, Dr. Rueben Warren. Well, I'm going to tell you like this. Dr. Warren, I received your CV, and I was like, my God, what am I going to say about this man? So I did like the young lady over here. I Googled. So what I'm reading from you, I Googled and got, because I received a 50-page book on all his accolades, and we be here all day. So I hope this covers and sum up what I don't get in, he will tell you. I promise you so. Anyway, Dr. Rueben C Warren is currently the director of the National Center for Bioethics and Research in Healthcare and professor of bioethics at Tuskegee University in Tuskegee, Alabama. He also serves as director and adjunct professor of the Institute of Faith, Health, Leadership, and adjunct professor of public health, medicine, and ethics at the Interdenominational Theological Center, ITC, in Atlanta, Georgia. From 1988 to 1997, Dr. Warren served as Associate Director for Minority Health at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC. From 1997 to 2004, he was Associate Director of Urban Affairs at the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, ATSDR. From 2005 to 2007, Dr. Warren served part-time as the Director of Infrastructure Development for the National Center on Minority Health and Health Disparities at the National Institute of Health in Bethesda, Maryland. From 2004 to 2009, he was on leave from the National Center for Environmental Health, CDC, ATSDR in Atlanta, where he served as Associate Director for Environmental Justice. As Associate Director at CDC, ATSDR, Dr. Warren had lead agency responsibility for environmental justice and minority health. Dr. Warren earned his undergraduate degree from San Francisco State University, his dental degree from Meharry Medical College, and both master's and doctorate degrees from the Harvard School of Public Health. He also completed a 2-year residency at Harvard School of Dental Medicine and dental public health. He is board certified in dental public health. Dr. Warren also completed a Master of Divinity from the Interdenominational Theological Center with a concentration in theology and ethics. Dr. Warren is an ordained minister. In June 1990, Dr. Warren received the Distinguished Harvard Alumni Award. In May 1999, he was awarded the honorary degree of Doctor of Medicine from Meharry Medical College. In 2000, he received the President's Distinguished Service Award, Meharry Medical College. In 2003, Dr. Warren's academic status at Meharry Dental School was elevated to Dean Emeritus. Later in October of that same year, he is inducted into the American College of Dentists. In May 2010, Dr. Warren received the Michael C. Alfano Award from New York College of Dentistry for promoting diversity in dental education. His extensive public experience at community, state, local, national, and international levels range from clinical and research work in the Lagos University Teaching Hospital in Lagos, Nigeria, to heading the public health dentistry program at the Mississippi State Department of Health. Dr. Warren has contributed to the science, literature, and public health, oral health, and health services research. His professional associations include the Health Brain Trust of the Congressional Black Caucus of the United States, National Dental Association, American Board of Dental Public Health, American Public Health Association, United Nations Children's Fund, and World Health Organization. Dr. Warren's membership in health-related associations has expanded his perspective on health. In 1996 to 97, he served as the chairperson of the Caucus on Public Health and Faith Communities, an affiliate of the American Public Health Association. At this time, I introduce to you Dr. Rueben C. Warren, Tuskegee University. That was a mouthful of you today.
That really ain't all that. Yeah, just know that. And what it really says is I'm a slow learner. It takes me a long time to learn. So I stayed in school a long time. So that's what that really means. But in all of that, I want to let you know I have not learned what I just learned a few minutes ago. You know, no matter how long, for me, as long as we stay in school, how many books you read, and unless you learn it, unless you live it, you don't know it. So I want to just take a moment and applaud this grandmama. And you see the product of her journey. Kyrie? Kyrie.
Yes.
How you doing, young man? Let's applaud Kyrie for his struggle. And you see he's still learning. He had that computer thing on it. Let me take a few minutes to share a little bit. I was just pleased when I got asked to show up. You know, most important is when you're asked to show up by your folk, you have to show up.
Amen.
You know, you have to show up. So I really didn't know what I was showing up for. She asked me to come, and then I had to show up because she's been so helpful to me. I travel back and forth from Tuskegee to Atlanta weekly, and sometimes more than once a week. And it's just a blessing to know that somebody's looking out for you. You know, so you can't say that too loud, but thank you. Because otherwise I'd be somewhere between Atlanta and Tuskegee lost. So thank you so very much. Also was pleased when we have a weekly staff meeting at Tuskegee where I proudly work. And one of my colleagues, we always say, well, what's coming up new this week? New publications, new presentations. And Dr. Harrell said, she's coming up. She will be here. And I say, me too. So I also exhaled because I knew if she was going to show up, I could even be late. You'd be all right. So thank you, Dr. Harrell. I was at a Board of Trustees meeting at Tuskegee. I'm so proud to work at Tuskegee. It's, you know, you hear about Tuskegee and you're proud to hear about it, but when you're working there, it's bragging rights. So it's a wonderful, wonderful place to work, and I think we're doing meaningful things. As I said, I really didn't know where I was coming, but when folk ask you to show up, you show. So my presentation is really consistent with what you heard. So we didn't practice together, but just listen and see what you heard and what I hopefully can reinforce. Because when that happens, you know it's a power bigger than all of us.
Amen.
That makes it happen. That's synergy with the Almighty. Just so you know, when I decided to come to Tuskegee some years ago, well, I take all my kids and everybody else's kids on a black college tour, wherever you go. So I've been doing that tour for 40 years. And so I do Tuskegee. But I started working there in 2009 full-time, every day, and sometimes every night. I start this afternoon by, as I've done, thanking you all for inviting me here. And you probably already know I don't know much about arthritis, except sometimes I think I have it. And I know my mother had arthritis to the point where she had a knee replacement. And we were blessed to be able to make that happen. And my grandmother used to talk about Arthur all the time. So Arthur got me today. So I don't have to go far. Thank God she didn't have to go far. When Arthur called, she just stayed still. And I can't imagine what would happen to me if I couldn't stay still with that condition. But I know about suffering that people go through who have to live with painful and debilitating conditions. The conditions may not kill you, but you suffer a lot, sometimes silently. And it's nothing worse than suffering silently, where you can't tell nobody or nobody understands. So I appreciate that. You see, I'm a dentist, and so I was taught about suffering. And I entered the profession because as a child I noted that suffering is largely ignored unless it impacts on other people or unless it's life-threatening. So if you suffer silently, ain't nobody gonna say nothing. Just let you suffer. This afternoon I want to focus my attention not on the suffering, as important as it is, but I want to focus my attention on you, every one of you. Whether you have arthritis or not, I want to focus on your sense of being, not doing, but being. In this country, you're valued because you do something. But just to be is enough for me. What you do is less important. That's why I sometimes get a little embarrassed when you start reading that stuff. That's doing, that ain't being. You know, the being is important. I believe that being is enough. Just to be here is enough. Don't have to accept nothing else. Just show up. You don't have to have arthritis to be affected by the condition. I want to speak to those of you who are affected by the condition and those of you who are affected by the condition as well. By that I mean I would like to talk to those who have the condition, but also to the caregivers and or the loved ones of those with the condition and those who are trained to provide professional health services for those who suffer from arthritis. And I said trained, I didn't say educated, because you had to become educated. I'm not sure how educated those doctors are. I went through dental school, and that's training. Medical school is training. You do it over and over again until you get it to the point where you can do it sleep. That's not education, that's training. So I pause and celebrate those who are educated about this condition. I don't want to get caught up in treatment modalities, because you heard what can happen. Sometimes they don't know, they'll tell you what they think. And act they know. I don't want to, that's important, but I don't want to get caught up on what do you do. Nor do I want to focus on the disease per se, the resulting illness, sickness, disability, or dysfunction, or unfortunately the premature death that may result. These topics have dominated the medical circles about arthritis. I'm not minimizing the research of what we're learning or the healthcare delivery, but as you've heard, that is not enough. You got to take it on yourself. You see, I know that you all can teach me more than I could ever tell you about arthritis. I've learned so much just in a few minutes. I didn't know any of that. You heard that long list of schools, all of that. I didn't know as much as I learned. And what I also hope you heard is that those are the things that she's decided to do because of an illness. If you're doing those things, or if you don't do those things, maybe you won't get ill. You ever thought about it? Just because you don't have hypertension or high blood pressure, those things that cause it, you shouldn't be doing anyway. Why do you have to go to the doctor for the doctor to tell you don't eat all that sugar? You know that. So you know that in advance, you ought to do better if you're not doing or doing better already. As I said, I've learned a lot about that condition just in a few minutes. Almost every discussion I've had over the last 40 years, and that's dating me, but that's okay, it's been about illness, not health, or not wellness. A lot about sick. As you heard, I'm on the faculty at Morehouse School of Medicine at Meharry, my alma mater, Emory, a couple other places. But they talk about sickness most of the time, not about health or wellness. I worked at the National Institutes of Health. That's supposed to be the largest research body in the world. And they spend most of their money on disease, research around disease, sickness, disability, and premature death. And when these conditions disproportionately impact upon certain populations, people without money, people without so-called power, and people without so-called prestige. They call them health disparities. You've heard that word, a health disparity. That's what it is. When you don't get what we know, and results are health disparities. In the 1990s, a woman by the name of Margaret Whitehead provided a definition that, in my view, clearly articulates what a health disparity is. She writes that health disparities are also health inequalities. They are not something you have to have. They are unnecessary and avoidable, and they are considered now as unfair and unjust. Unfair and unjust. When I was working at NIH, the National Institute for Health, they didn't talk about unfair and unjust. They just said when there was the difference between what you have as a population and what others have as a population, then those that had the worst conditions had health disparities. They never said it was unfair. They never said it was unjust, but it's not by chance that the same folk have the health disparities all the time. And I really didn't know where I was coming today, so I can say, looking around, that it looked like me and you. All the time. Not some of the time, all the time. And something's wrong with that. Something's wrong with that picture. They didn't consider them as unfair and unjust. I do. That's unfair. That's unjust. That ain't right. So they worked with that for years, spent a lot of money. A lot of folk got a lot of degrees, published a lot of papers on health disparities. They made themselves famous off us. I stopped going to conferences and stopped showing slides on the health of folk who look like us, because every time the worst folk was. So I just stopped going because I'd leave depressed. Man, here we got diabetes, we got it worse than anybody else. Cancer, we got it worse than anybody else. Heart disease, we got it worse than anybody else. Infant mortality, we got it worse than anybody else. Violence, killing us, worse than anybody else. Something as small, minimum as unintentional injuries like car crashes, like fires, like drowning, we got it worse than what? Anybody else. Something's wrong with that picture. So they shifted and they stopped. We didn't solve it. Hear me now. We didn't solve it. We just shifted and started. We're going to stop talking about the bad and start talking about the good. And we're going to call it health equity. So if you hear that word health equity on the radio or TV, ain't nothing changed but the word. Nothing changed but the word. That's supposed to change the way you think about it. So they start talking about health equity. But what is a health equity? And what is health equity anyway? Health equity focuses on the distribution of resources, hear me, and other processes that drive a particular kind of health inequality. Sister says she had good insurance, so she could find the doctors and challenge the doctors. What if you don't have insurance? And you know who disproportionately does not have insurance. In other words, health inequality is also unjust and unfair. For me, equity suggests a fair distribution of goods and services. Equity suggests for me justice. And that's simply fairness, doing the right thing. And in this instance, health, and I want you to think about health as a goods. It's something that you can acquire. It's a good. Equity suggests fairness and justice. It ain't always fair or just to be equal. You know, folks talking about we want to be equal. Well, if you starting from a long way behind, then they make things equal, where you going to be? A long way behind. And if you've been disadvantaged, that's the kind word, oppressed, that's the more clearer word, discriminated against for decades and maybe centuries, and being treated unfairly through personal and or institutional racism, sexism, Should you expect to be treated equal or equitable? Equitable. So change the language. Not talking about equal. Equal don't work for me. Equitable. That means if I need more, what? I'm supposed to get more. If I need more, I should get more. Equality and equity are not the same thing. We should never stop struggling for equity. But that's kind of philosophical. That's kind of, that's what we want to do at some point in time. And I argue that we have to be more pragmatic. I won't recount what you already know about all those diseases and conditions that we suffer from. You're living them. So folk can't tell you about those conditions. Every number has a name. When I was in school all that time, they gave me the numbers. But then my mom and them, my grandmama and them, uncles, aunts, cousins, those were the names. Every disease, I got some folk either out there with my kinfolk or I know who suffered from them. And quite frankly, they didn't have to. And that's the point that's unfair and makes things unequal. Biomedical research, all the work that NIH does, the money they spend, this country spends more money than any other country in the world. So you would expect folk in this country to be better, but we're not. And those who are better don't look like us. And that's systematic, and that's consistent, and that's been ever since they started keeping records. Some years ago when they quote-unquote stopped apartheid in South Africa, the first thing they said they wanted to do was stop collecting information based on race. Now, why did they want to do that? Because they knew that if they collected it, they would show that folk from certain groups would consistently be in the worst shape. So talk about equity and not equality, if you will. Talk about preventing arthritis and promoting health. Even if you're living with the condition, she is promoting the health of this young man in spite of the condition. And it's phenomenal. That's a story that should be told over and over again. She's talking about the life of her child. That's a whole different story than trying to keep me from getting hypertension or keep me from getting arthritis. And I'm not minimizing what you have to do when you have it. But I'm suggesting you don't have to have it. You don't have to have it. Don't claim it. Don't say I have it. Say I'm living with it. Put it outside of you. Look at it. And you internalize it, it takes you over. Remember, at least I believe, that thoughts become things. Amen. Thoughts become things. Don't say it. Don't even allow it to be said around you. No. My mother was living with arthritis. She was living with Alzheimer's. She couldn't remember what happened yesterday, but she knew what happened 20 years ago. I told her, don't worry about yesterday, I got that. I wasn't around 20 years, 30 years ago. Tell me about that. She had it. She could tell me about stuff that before I was born. So she had what she needed. I had what I needed. And we lived a lovely life together. Lovely life together. And I don't mean to ignore the facts. I'm not suggesting that. I'm a scientist. I went through school a long time, as you heard. I've learned the science that undergirds the treatment. But we must look for something beyond the physical. Something that is maybe social, something that may be psychological, and something maybe what? Spiritual. All those things make up who you are, who you be. And don't minimize any one of them. Don't abandon the research and the treatment activities, as you've heard. She didn't abandon, she investigated, she challenged them and made a decision. My child doesn't need all that. That was her decision. And quite frankly, look at what we have. She was right. Regardless of what the literature says, regardless of what the publications say, she made that decision. The reality is that we are whole and complete when we look inside. The outside is important, but when we look inside, we are whole and complete. When we focus our attention on the outside, on health disparities, or even on health equity only, we may be accepting a deficit model of self. Something's always wrong with me model. I got to get better model. I'm going to be sick model. I'm going to suffer model. You know, in communities where I've grown up, they're always talking about just trying to make it. I'm just trying to make it. Suffering. That's the model that possesses many of us, unfortunately most of us. When we shift our thinking, we may say then, I'm all right. My days are better and better. I'm well. And you may raise the question, what causes arthritis anyway? What are the conditions or the circumstances that create arthritis, and who is responsible for those conditions? When you answer those questions, surely you may raise questions of fairness. Is it fair for this young man to have to suffer? Is it right for him to have to suffer? And if it ain't right, if it ain't fair, I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to do something about it. I'm not going to go to the doctor and ask him or her to do something about it in a vacuum. I'm going to take responsibility and authority. When you look on the outside, you find many things that challenge your inside. But when you look on the inside, you find more that overcomes the outside. At least that's what I believe. I believe the power is within you. So let's shift our thinking to a more holistic agenda. Let's treat the disease, yes, as you're doing, but also investigate health. What does it take to be healthy? That's what she said. He ain't eating that. I've watched what happens when he eats it. So he's not eating that anymore. I don't care what you say, nutritionist. It doesn't work. So I'm doing something different. And I have the power within to confirm that difference. What are the assets that I have to take care of the folk I care about? Like people without the disease, what allows us to function? Like some with the condition, what allows them to function? Let's study both, those with the condition and those without. Let's find out what works. That's what you've done. Not what they say, but what works. And then share the good news as you've done. All that's worthy of conversation. And you may have to modify the way you walk sometimes. You know, I'm 71, and I used to jog every morning. Now I walk every morning. You know what I'm saying? And that's okay. I don't stop because I can't jog. I just start walking. Modify what you have to do. You have the capacity to make the paradigm shift from looking at disease to looking at health. That's what I heard her say. I'm looking at health. What's going to keep my child going? And I would argue there's a thing that we can do. And it's called optimal health. Optimal health is a thing that we can do. And before I get there, I want to just spend a minute to clear up what people call disease, sickness, disability, and death. They think they're all the same, but they're not. What is disease? What is sickness? What is illness? In a book called Health as Liberation, Medicine, Theology, and the Quest for Justice, the author writes that illness is used to describe a specific adverse condition. When you want to describe something, that's illness. Illness is subjective experience of the individual, the awareness of ill health. Sickness is the ascription of ill health to a person by others, and it may not be measurable in the absence of illness. Like mental health. You know folk that have some mental health challenges and they don't look like nothing wrong with them. If you ask them, they say, ain't nothing wrong with me. You're the one who's crazy. So that it's an ascription that somebody else puts on you. And you don't have to accept it. Disease is a medical or scientific endorsement of the social role of sickness. You know how you feel when somebody says you're sick and you start slowing up. You know, so you just feel different. You're sick, so you act different. Just because they said you're sick, you're supposed to act different. I don't believe that. Let me give you an example. In a May 1851 article entitled Disease and the Physical Peculiarities of the Negro Race, published in this very high-level New Orleans Medical and Surgical Journal, Samuel Wright, an MD, wrote about diseases specific to black people. He described droptomania. It's heavy, isn't it? Droptomania, the disease of running away from slavery. In the scientific literature, if you run away from slavery, something wrong with you. He also described dysthesia Ethiopus, an herptitude of mind and obtuse sensitivity of the body known as rascality. Everybody ever call you a rascal? Yeah. You see? You don't know where it came from, did you? Don't call them children rascals. In the scientific literature, that's what they called it. And I asked, were the enslaved men and women ill because they sought freedom from slavery and oppression? Or were the oppressors, white slave masters, or the white physicians, mentally ill for the barbaric treatment of other human beings? Who was sick? Who was ill? Think about it. But I don't want to spend any more time talking about illness, sickness, disease, health disparities, except that you know we spend, or this country spends more money on medical care than any other country in the world. And the numbers are embarrassingly poor, embarrassingly low, because of folk who look like me and you. And then they say it's because of your lifestyle. If you would act different, everything would be all right. They say that we die from cirrhosis, and we do disproportionately, and they say you die from cirrhosis, why? You drink too much. They don't tell you about the toxicants in the environment. Huh? They don't tell you about that. They don't tell you that we live 4 to 5 times more likely to live within a 1 mile radius of a toxic and hazardous waste site full of toxins. So we breathe in them. And they want to say because we're drinking too much. And we believe it. Because we are drinking too much. First thing you say when somebody has cirrhosis, right? They drinking too much. Blaming us for conditions that we have no control. That doesn't mean we shouldn't stop drinking. I'm not suggesting that. But be real clear about what that really means. The United States is the best place in the world if you're sick. It's not the best place if you're healthy. It's a difference. If you're sick, you can get all kind of stuff if you have the money. But if you're healthy, what do? The last time you went to the doctor, physician, or the dentist, and there was nothing wrong with you, what did they say? Virtually nothing. They sent you home and said, come back again in 6 months or a year, and I'll look and see what's wrong with you. They call it a physical examination. I've been through it, so I know what I'm talking about. I'm looking for something wrong. And if I can't find anything wrong, I say, go away. Come back later. And I'm going to look for what? Something wrong again. That's the wrong paradigm. Because we don't know what to look for right. What's right? How are you supposed to feel when it's right? Well, a colleague who's now made his transition, Dr. John Chazelle, taught me. Actually, he didn't teach me. I followed him around for about 10 years. And I learned by watching. Chazelle, an African-American physician who mentored me for 10 years, before he made his transition in 2004, he taught me that optimal health was a way of being, your greatest state of aliveness, where you can be all you can be. And we can be different. And only you know what you can be. So you don't want to be this, I want to be like that. Be like you. Just to be is enough. He said that we live in a sick care system, not a health care system. So don't go to the system to try to be healthy. Doesn't work. And I say that with authority, because I've been through the schools and studied hard. I learned all that I could learn. I went to the best dental school in the world. I was at Mary. I'm real clear on that, an HBCU. And then I went to another set of schools, another school that they say is the best in the world. I went to Harvard. Meharry prepared me for Harvard. I couldn't have gone to Harvard directly from college. I needed Meharry to make that transition. So I know what they teach, and I know what I learned. And let me give you a description of health, because Chazelle taught me that the WHO definition doesn't work. It's too narrow. He said, use your own description of health. So I have one. I've been working on it for about 15 years, and I got it now. Listen to what it says. Health is a relationship, a dynamic interplay between the physical, social, psychological, and spiritual well-being of the individual and the group, and their interaction in the physical and social environment. You cannot be healthy by yourself. If you think you can, try it. And you know when you're not feeling well, you got to tell somebody, don't you? You got to tell somebody, I ain't feeling well. I need some help. Help me. You can't be sick by yourself, but you can't be healthy by yourself either. So when you're feeling bad, tell somebody. And when you're feeling good, what? Tell somebody. You'd be surprised how they feel when somebody asks you, how you doing? Better and better. How you doing? Know what they're going to say? Better and better. They will adopt that notion when you give it to them. What about a smile? If you don't believe it, smile at somebody when you pass them and watch them. And then frown at them and watch them. You'll see a difference. And that's part of the health dynamic. A relationship. You can't have it by yourself. That's what health is. I could go on and on, but I'm not. But I want you to hear me clearly. Health promotion and disease prevention are two different things. And this country doesn't do either very well. Preventing disease assumes that disease is inevitable. It suggests you got to be sick. I'm going to get sick no matter what I do. I don't believe that. And when there is an occasion when you're sick, you don't have to stay sick. And you don't have to act sick either. Health promotion suggests that health is a norm. It's what you deserve, what you ought to have. So you promote it. You may do the same thing when you're doing disease prevention as when you're doing health promotion, but the intent is very different. I go to training every morning, well, 5 days out of the 7 mornings. Physical trainer. I'm going there to promote my health, not to prevent disease. When I go get my checkups, I'm okay. He said, well, you're okay for a 71-year-old man. I said, how is a 74-year-old man supposed to act? What are you supposed to look like? And you know, particularly with you sisters, when you go folk think you always much younger than you really are. So they're confused. The way you're supposed to look is the way you look when you're at your best. You know, what I've learned is that the new 70 is what? 50. You see what I'm saying? So don't come acting like I'm supposed to. No! Not me or not you either. Not me or not you either. I had a detail about chronicling the history of medicine. I'm not going to do that because that time is short. But you know that Imhotep, the true father of medicine, was an Egyptian. You know that, right? And even though the federal government says that the Egyptians are Caucasians, that's what they say. You know better. And you also need to know the father of medicine was also a priest. And before you could be a physician back in the day, you had to be a priest. So they knew what we now coming into. Imhotep created all. He was a priest first. And then he became a physician. I did the other way around. I went through medical school, dental school, master's, doctorate, and working at teaching and working at CDC, the best place. Then I went to seminary. I said, ain't no answers there. I tried everything. Everything. And I went to seminary. And I didn't find the answer, but I found a direction. All right? I found a direction. And I found out what to do when you didn't have an answer. You see, and it's okay not to know. I'm okay with the dark. It can be pitch dark, and I ain't worried. Because I got another eye. And I'm looking another way. So I am not afraid. And I ain't tired either. And I started to go somewhere else with that, but I'm not. I'm almost on it. I'm going to put this paper down. but I'm not. Because our time is short. And you know, when them black preachers get started, we don't stop. So I'm not going to get started. Let me conclude with a few things. Dr. Chazelle, my mentor, outlined the components of the journey for people of African descent who choose optimal health. He said it's emotional optimal health, it's physical optimal health, it's intellectual optimal health, it's socioeconomic optimal health, it's spiritual optimal health. He conceptualized those components for optimal health. And then he charged me with translating them into something we can do. He charged me with that, and I've been working on it ever since. But I know you can do a few things that I've come to realize already. You can eat the right food. Huh? You can take care of your body. You can learn to get along with others. You can respect and protect the environment. And you can believe in a divine order to the universe. Now, those are 5 things that doesn't take a doctor to do. You can do those things. And you should do those things. And I cannot end without talking about that place called Tuskegee. I will not end. And I want to talk about that in the context of the founding president, Booker T. Washington. Now, hear me clearly, the founding president, he was not the founder of Tuskegee. Get it straight, because if we don't clear history up, we'll be as guilty as those who revise it. Amen. He was the founding president. Wonderful, glorious job, but he was not the founder of Tuskegee. But he did initiate National Negro Health Week. And what he said over 100 years ago is what we're saying right now. We can prevent disease and promote our health. We disproportionately suffer. He was talking about black folk, unapologetically. And we can do something about it. Later on, a European scholar said that he said that health is more than just physical. You need to have exercise, he said, a quality of life, good living conditions. He was saying the same thing as Booker T. And I'm saying that your sense of being is most important. Your sense of knowing how to be is most important. And the work that you're doing, and I've learned more about it since I've been here, is arthritis plus. You see? It's arthritis plus. And I also know that the challenge you have is more than people say you can do.
Amen.
And I know the naysayers are telling you it cannot be done. I know they told Booker T it couldn't be done, but he did it anyway. They told George Washington Carver it couldn't be done, and he did it anyway. They're telling you it cannot be done, but you're going to do it anyway. The naysayers always say that it cannot be done. In fact, somebody said that it couldn't be done, but he with a chuckle, she with a chuckle replied, maybe it couldn't, but he, she, who wouldn't say it couldn't until they had tried. Somebody said, oh, you'll never do that. At least no one ever has done it. But she took off her coat and he took off his hat. And the next thing we knew, he'd begun it. With a lift of his chin and a bit of a grin, and without any doubt or quitting, she started to sing when he tackled a thing that couldn't be done, and he did it. There are those who will tell you it cannot be done. There are those who will prophesy failure. There are those who will point out to you one by one the dangers to wait to assail you. But just buckle in with a bit of a grin. Take off your coat and go to it. Just start to sing when you tackle the thing that cannot be done. And you'll do it. You see, I believe that spirit overrides everything.
Amen.
I also believe that we are an individualization of that same spirit. We are one in the one.
Yes.
And nothing from spirit is anything other than perfect. Don't let anybody tell you that it ain't perfect when it comes from God.
Come on.
We can mess it up now. But when you take the spirit and transfer what spirit says to your soul, that's like fertile ground. Huh? And if it outpictures negatively, it's because you made it negative. Because spirit is not negative.
Come on.
So if it outpictures negative, you done messed it up. Don't blame it on God. It's perfect when it comes from God. So I'll allow that spirit to transfer into soul
Come on.
and outpicture in what you do. And it may not look like you're okay. Huh? But if you look inside, huh? You know you're okay. So walk like you're okay, even if you do it a little slower. Talk like you're okay, even if you do it a little mixed up. And just know without any doubt that something, what? Inside is so strong. Thank y'all. I appreciate being here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Put this down. I don't want that in the picture.
Dr. Warren, you brought us a wealth of knowledge. For some that you've allowed us to come in here and change our whole mindset just from our speech. Optimal health. I think that's just two words that we all can take away. Optimal health. The power is within us to change. So I think that's a lot. Just those few words are powerful, and we can take that away. So even we had 10,000 tongues, Lord knows we just couldn't give you enough today to show our appreciation for you being here, taking time out of your busy schedule, traveling all the way from Atlanta to come down here and see us. And I just say, I truly am humble, and I thank you, and I truly look forward. Your colleague, Dr. Harold, it's been awesome and it's been amazing. So on behalf of us, Certificate of Appreciation, Rueben C Warren, and all your accolades. It's thanked for their phenomenal participation on Children and Adult Arthritis Repair Day, presented by Dr. William D. Paul, Church on the Road, on this day, March 18, 2017.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
This is for Dr. Warren from us as well. This shows just a small token of our appreciation to you.
You saying it's fruit and it's healthy. I love it. Thank you.
Okay, on three. 1, 2.
Well, I messed it up.
1, 2, and there you go.
Thank
All
you
right,
again.
thank you. All
Thank
right.
you. Just to reiterate today, I think today has been a wonderful day. We've been here for children and arthritis, children and adult arthritis and osteoporosis repair day, a program of IGMA, I Get Myself Away Incorporated. The shepherd of this flock, once again, will please give Dr. William Paul a hand of applause. This is his facility. He brought us in. He is mentoring us. He's allowing events like this, seminars that the community needs, and he's allowing this to happen at his facility. He has entrusted me to be his executive director, entrusted me to put these programs on and bring wonderful speakers like your story, Mrs. Pearson's story, and our two wonderful professors from Tuskegee University. I mean, I really didn't. It was some bumps in the road. I got discouraged, but I tell you, God is awesome. He is. So at this moment, because I'm a crybaby, but so at this moment, I'm gonna turn it over. I thank y'all for allowing me to be your MC today. Everything is just kind of impromptu. I do like to talk, but that helps. And being a nurse over 20 years, kind of helps as well. So, but again, thank you. I humbly thank you. I have just been enlightened today. I mean, you just have spoken. The personal experience, I know Miss Jackson, I've heard that story. I knew she would be somebody that everybody would want to hear. We never know. Your children, your grandchildren, when it may be affected. Mrs. Pearson, who suffers with rheumatoid arthritis. And kind of like to reiterate on what both of you said, that this is just not about arthritis. This is about us and taking care of our health, because we suffer with diabetes, we suffer with high blood pressure, we suffer with all of this, and the only thing the doctors are doing is just piling more and more meds on you. I see it daily. I've worked at the bedside, so I know. I tell you, they come in there and they on 10, 15, 20 different pills. When you got to get a med history team together just to help, to kind of decipher what your meds are, because it's taking too much time from with the bedside nurses to do, and you got to get somebody from a med history team, hire these folks and employ these folks. We got a problem. We have a problem. You got to call pharmacists, because one doctor after another is just piling on medication and nobody cares, because at the end of the day, it's a money-making business. I see it every day. So, I know what to look for. I know how to speak to my doctor. We have to be educated, because you need to learn how to speak to your doctor as well. Don't just take no for an answer, and don't just take what he's giving you, because doctors don't know everything. I'll tell you, my grandmama said that a long time ago, years ago. And especially after I had my first child, get that baby this and get that baby that, because them doctors don't know nothing. Didn't kill my baby. So, look at us. So again, thank you for allowing me to be here, to be your, first and foremost, be your executive director, and then be your MC of the hour.